Hey there guys, today we're going to be looking at the double under stack pass. The double under pass is one of those traditional old passes from way back when. It's been around the sport for a long time. It works at white belts, at blue belts, and all the way up to black belt. Even at the black belt level, if you can force somebody up to the plow position where they're stuck, like so, they really don't have much offense from a position like that. We're going to see a number of different methods to get to the plow position, and then we're also going to see a number of different methods to finish from the plow position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys all the entries first, and then once we get to the plow position, then I'll show you all the different ways we can finish. Okay? Well, let's get started. So, and want to lay with your head to the camera. So our guard passing methodology is always going to have this same kind of 4-step sequence. Over the course of the next 7 weeks, we're going to look at 7 different guard passes, and they're all going to follow the same 4-step sequence. The first step is to break your opponent's connections that they have into you. Okay, we're not going to cover that today. We covered breaking connections last week, but as you know, if I get caught in any sort of guard, I've got to do my best to break my opponent's connections to me so I can start going and passing. Okay? So first step, break connections. Second step is going to be to point the feet away from you. Now we can do this a few different ways. We can point the feet up and away, which will allow me to pass underneath the legs, and that's what we're studying today. Then we're going to look at methods in later weeks where I point the feet down and away, which will allow me to pass through the legs, and I come between the 2 legs here. And then we're going to look at methods where I point the feet to the side in a way, where now I go around the legs. Okay? So I can point the feet up and away, down and away, or to the side and away. If I point them up, I pass under the legs. If I point them down, I pass through the legs. And if I point them to the side, I pass around the legs. So step number 1, break the connections. Step number 2, point your opponent's feet away from you. Step number 3 is going to be to get tight to and control the pocket of my opponent's hips, where the femur meets the hip right here in the bend. The reason this is so important, if I just come up here and I control anywhere, and now Ant wants to frame and bring, let's say, this knee inside, he can get the knee inside. Now if I go down and I control the pocket of the hip here with my elbow, and now I ask Ant to frame and get that knee inside, my elbow that crosses the femur stops his upper leg from coming inside. So you want to get tight to and control the pocket of the hips for the express purpose of preventing his feet and his knees from coming back inside. That is the point of controlling the pocket of the hips. You want to control the pocket of both hips ideally. We usually start with 1, but eventually we want to try to get to 2. If I control just the pocket of one hip, now when Ant goes to bring his left leg in, he can't. But because I'm not controlling the pocket of the right hip, when he brings his right knee in, he can easily do so. Conversely, if I control the pocket of the near hip, if he tries to bring this leg in, my knee in the pocket of the near hip will keep it shut out. If he tries to bring this leg in, he can easily do so because I'm not controlling the pocket of the hip. If I control the pocket of both hips, and Ant now goes to frame and bring his legs back inside, they're stuck out. So that's step number 3. Get tight to and control the pocket of the hips. And then step number 4 is to patiently transition from the hips to the head and shoulders. Now, I said patiently for a reason. So often I will see people, especially lower belts, they get to the hips and they know they want to get head control, and they feel like they have to rush it. They feel like, oh, I better get to the head before he escapes. So they go to the head, and as I go to the head and Ant puts his frames up, now the legs come back in. So we want to stay tight to the hips, super tight, until my opponent kind of accepts the position and stops fighting as much, and then I want to get inside the frames, and I want to patiently, in a controlled fashion, make my way up to the head and shoulders, in a tight, patient way so that the legs never come back in. Again, if I get too antsy here and I just dive for the head and shoulders, that's where things are going to go bad. So that same 4-step system. Break the connections, point the feet away, get tight to the hips, the pocket of the hips, and then patiently manage the transition from the hips to the head and shoulders. All of our guard passes are going to have the same 4-step sequence for the most part, okay? So let's look at the double underpass, pointing the feet up and away. Now my goal, I'm going to square you up just a tad here. My goal is to take his feet up over his head and to create the plow position. And we're going to see a number of ways to get to this position here. Okay, I want his 2 big toes down to the floor. I want his hips up over his shoulders. I want this knee angled and propping into the hips. And my arm controlling the hips as well. So now when Ant tries to drop his hips to the floor, he can't. So we're going to look at a number of different methods to get to this position today, the plow position, where Ant has been folded over himself, almost like a snow plow. Imagine a snow plow comes in, catches the snow, drives, plows, and we end up kind of doing this wave effect, okay? Almost like a big wave in an ocean, like surfers, that surfers ride in, right? The wave breaks, and you have surfers that surf through the middle here. I think they call it like tubular or going tubular or whatever, right? So just like a wave of water, or like a wave of snow being plowed over, we create the plow position. Then from the plow position, we're going to see another multiple methods of finishing. So a number of methods to get here. Once we're here, we have a number of ways to finish, but they're all going to have that plow position in common. So imagine we have a lot of different starting options. They all converge to the single point, the plow, and then we can divert from that point to our finishes. Okay, so let's get started looking at shoulder stacking methods first. Let's go with distance. Let's do side. Sorry. So I'm here. Ant's got his feet here. If Ant's feet are higher than his knees, his feet are higher than the knee, that's usually where I take the feet up and away, and I point the feet up and away. If the feet are lower than the knees, this is not really the time for stack passing. This is when I'll point the feet down and away, and I'll start passing through the middle of the legs. So over the next few weeks, we're going to start to tie these together. When you guys learn the first set of techniques for the double underpass, you're going to try it, and your partner's going to curl his heels down to his butt, curl, and you're not going to be able to lift the legs and create the plow, okay? But because it's keeping his feet so low, I can easily come in and go in the middle, okay? If, let's say, I want to drive the feet down in a way, and Ant keeps trying to lift his feet up, and I'm trying to like push these things down to go through the legs, now's not the time to put the feet down in a way and go through the legs. If he wants to fight his feet up, this is the time to go underneath and point the feet up and away and go underneath the legs. So you're going to get better at passing guard when you have more passes to connect things to, when you have more solutions. Okay? If you just have one guard pass and your opponent knows what it is, it's going to be tough to get it. You're going to lose faith in the technique. Don't lose faith. Keep trying it. Over time, as you get more guard passes and you learn how to chain your passes together based on your opponent's movements, you're going to start to find more success. But let's start with this notion of the feet higher than the knees. He points his feet at me, I see the feet higher than the knees. I come in, I take hands on the soles of the feet, just grabbing like so, and I take a step forward and I point the feet up and away. That exposes his hamstrings to me. Now I'm going to lower my level and get my chest to the hamstrings. Now from right here, a lot of people will try to hit the stack pass from straight on, like so, where they're squared up with their opponent. Now from here, Ant wants to take his knees wide and low. Wide with the knees and low. Out, like make your legs heavy. Straight, yes! Now when I try to hit the stack pass, I can't get the leg up to my shoulder, which is what I need. I need my shoulder underneath his hamstring. he wants his leg off my shoulder. Here. So when I point the feet up and away, and I drop down to expose the hamstrings and get chest to hamstring, rather than stay square with Ant, I'm going to drive to one side so that I'm lined up with one hip. I'm only focused on one hip, this one right here. I line myself up so I face from near hip to far shoulder. I face along this diagonal line of power. Because now I get the leg up my shoulder. When Ant tries to take the leg off my shoulder, it's much harder, as opposed to if I'm here, and now you can get the legs off the shoulder, you see? So when I hit my stack passing, I do it from an angle, not from square on. I come down, and then I knee drop to the side. Now when Ant takes the leg off my shoulder, it's hard. I'm going to anchor my hand in position by grabbing low on the lapel. I don't grab too high as that exposes my elbow to the elbow push escape. Go ahead and do a visual in there. Yes. So I want to keep my elbow low, pulled into my hip. Here. Now when he goes for that elbow push escape, it's not there. My left hand is going to reach underneath the hips. If his hips are on the floor, all I need to do is use my shoulder on his hamstring to drive his knee to his nose, and that will raise his hips. With the hips up, I come in, I grab straight down the middle of the spine, down the middle of the butt crack, so I'm right down the middle. I don't want to be off to one side. I don't want my arm angled. I want to be right here, so it goes parallel to the spine right down the middle. That will allow me to lift and drive and force his two big toes to the floor. And now we have the plow position. Okay? If Ant is framing on me with this hand, as I come in and I got a stack, I use my knee inside of his bicep to take his frame out. Okay. So again, if I come in, he frames, knee inside, and take the frame away. And we have the plow position. That's one way to create the position. Again, there's a number of ways to get there. We're going to look at a number of those, and then we'll look at a number of finishes. The one we looked at right now was the shoulder stacking method, where I get my shoulder underneath the hamstring, and I use my shoulder to stack. And we did that from distance. We can do that from the closed guard as well. Closed guard. So I'm here in the closed guard. We know what to do from here. I fix up my grips, getting a cuff grip. I stand up on the same side as the cuff grip. Vertical posture, elbow inside the knee. Hand inside the other knee, we break. Now, I mentioned a couple weeks ago that from here I want to come down with my torso between his knees. But against people that are good, that's hard to do. As I try to come down, he's going to put this knee in front of me. Always happens, very, very common. That's fine. Now from here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand inside his ankle, drive my hand up to the ceiling, and that brings the leg up to my shoulder. Now from here, Ant wants to take his right knee to his chest so he can put his foot on me and kick me away. So as soon as I feel that knee going in, I follow it. I drop down so that my shoulder gets to, you guessed it, his hamstring. Now I anchor everything in place, coming to an angle. Now from this angle, when Ant tries to take the leg off the shoulder, he can't. My right hand goes in underneath the hips, and we start to lift and drive, and I prop my knee behind the hips. And now from here, if I need to, I like to take my left knee over the bicep to take that arm out. And once again, we have the plow position, we're ready to go to work. So that was from closed guard. One more time. Closed guard here. Fix up our grips. Cuff grip. Stand. I break the guard open. Ant goes to get his knee inside. Lift to the ceiling. Drop. Shoulder to hamstring. Right arm goes underneath the hips, lining it up with the spine, and now we stack. And now we're ready to pass. Another method, half guard or knee shield. We're in a knee shield position, very, very common. It could be, let's see how we get here. I'm sorry, I'd rather just start us there. Let me show us how we get there. So I'm here, I split the legs. His feet are lower than his knees. So I point his feet where? Down and away. When the feet are pointed down and away, I pass in which direction? Through the legs. So I step to the middle, trying to come through the legs. As I come in, he gets that knee in my way. I drop to my knees and we end up in a knee shield. Very common scenario. Now from the knee shield, we're going to do very similar to what we did from breaking open the closed guard. I'm going to get a grip inside the ankle, just a scoop grip here. I can place my hand on the thigh if I want to, that's fine. You don't need to, you can. I don't try to lift the leg from here. I don't try to keep my hand low and flare the elbow. If Ant makes his left leg very heavy, I'm never going to get this thing up to my shoulder. So rather, I'm going to come out to the end of the lever to maximize leverage. Now he's going to make his leg very heavy. I'm going to take my hand, bring it up toward the ceiling, and that's going to take his knee out of my way. Right now, his knee's in my way. When I punch this up to the ceiling, his knee comes out of my way, and it makes an opening for my shoulder to get to the hamstring. Now, when I pull this up and away, when I go like this, what Ant wants to do, he wants to take his left knee to his chest so he can get his foot on me. Perfect, and kick me away. So, as I lift this, as I feel Ant's knee going away from me, I follow the knee, so I get my shoulder to his hamstring. Now, as you already know, if I stay at this angle, Ant is going to take his leg off my shoulder and go wide with it. Nope, don't go there. Yes, and now I can't, yes, and this is going to happen. Now I can't get it back on my shoulder. So as soon as I punch up, he pulls his knee in, I follow. Now I want to go to the other side. And I line myself up on this hip toward the far shoulder. Now when Ant goes to take the leg off my shoulder, good luck, it's hard. I take my grip, hand underneath the hips as we stack. My left knee props behind the hips. My right knee slides over the bicep, and we have our plow position and we're ready to go to work. So that was 3 methods of getting to the plow position using a shoulder stack method where I get my shoulder to his hamstring. This is the method I used for a long time. It's the only method I knew for a long time. Then I started just fairly recently, within the last year or so, using an ankle pin method. And that has been very, very useful for me. I've been liking this because I don't need to drive my body weight down to where they can frame and push off me. I just take my hands and pin the ankles to create the stack. So the feet are pointing up and away, or I'm sorry, the feet are pointing toward me, and his feet are higher than the knees. When the feet are higher than the knees, I point the feet up and away. Now here, rather than dropping down and getting chest to hamstring like we did before, I just move my grip from the bottom of the feet to behind the ankles. And now I walk forward and put his 2 big toes on the mat. Notice I'm not sprawling any body weight on him except my hands. If he tries to fight back with his feet, and I feel like his legs are strong, I just take my legs back. So I lean more of my weight on my hands. Let's go to an angle so I can see that. If I'm here, but I keep most of my weight on my legs, he can fight into me and try to pummel it and create some trouble for me. So when I'm here, and I stack, and I feel like he's starting to fight me with the legs a little bit, I just move my feet back. And now when he tries to fight me, good luck. There's far too much weight on the ankles. So I didn't finish that, I'm sorry. So I'm here, feet are higher than the knees. So I point the feet up and away, I go to the ankles. I walk, until the toes touch the floor, and I take my weight back. Now from here, my right knee, you guys can't see it, but my right knee is sliding over the bicep, just like we did before. My left knee props behind the hips, and now my left hand is going to go from the far ankle to the hips here. And now what do we have? The same plow position that we got into using the shoulder stack method, but now we used an ankle pin method. Let's look at another option for the ankle pin, close guard. I'm here, I fix up my grips, cuff grip, and we stand. Elbow inside the knee, push, push, push. The knee comes in front, and now rather than taking a scoop and lifting like so with my elbow, I can also take my hand onto the ankle, just like so. So his ankle sits in the webbing of my thumb. Now I'm going to start to push one leg over the head. And when I push one leg, watch what naturally happens to the other. It rises. When I push one leg up, it pulls the hips up. When the hips get pulled up, it pulls the second leg up. And I catch the second ankle. Now I walk forward, pin the feet, knee over the bicep, left knee behind the hips, control the hips, and now we have the plow position. We can do the same thing from knee shield. The feet are lower than the knees this time, so I point the feet down in a way. And I try to come through the legs. And that knee comes in my way. I drop down to knee shield, that's fine. Now, from knee shield, I can go in, get underneath, and try to pin, try to grab the ankle like so and stand. When I push one leg, the second leg will always rise. If I stand my feet rather than dropping to my knees, so I come in here, he puts on like a reverse De La Riva. I try to keep the knee out here. Now, Ant wants to take his knee shield in. If I do a good job of connecting my right knee and my right elbow and keeping my right shoulder low, and when he tries to bring his knee in, he can't. So what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to bring his foot in as a lasso. He's going to frame, and the foot's going to come in. When he goes to put in a lasso, do you see what happens? Do that again, very slow. Stop. The foot goes higher than the knee. Okay, go back. So if I know that and I time it, I'm here, I'm trying to drive in for my knee cut. He frames and he comes in with a lasso. I catch the foot. I stand up, and now I start to push. And we have the plow position. Now I come in, knee over the bicep, left knee behind the hips, left arm controlling the hips, and now we have our plow position. We're ready to go to work. So you guys can use shoulder stack methods where you get your shoulder underneath the hamstring and use body weight to get to the plow. Or you can use ankle pinning methods where I just cup the ankles. Anytime the feet come higher than the knees, I cup the ankles, I point the feet up and away, and I go into the plow. Now, let's get on to part 2 of this video, finishing from the plow position. We have a number of different methods, again, for different scenarios. There's a basic sprawl. This is probably one of my least favorite. It's not as precise. It doesn't control the pocket of the hips as well. But it's the old traditional method, so I'm gonna teach it. And then I got some other methods that I like that I think are a little more precise, that really hone in on and getting into the pocket of the hips and controlling the hips to completely shut out the legs. So I'm gonna show all these, okay? So, I'm back. Whatever method you guys want to use, I see the feet are higher than knees, come in, and I come into my plow position here. Now the first method we have is stacking. So I'm going to come in with my right hand, control the lapel here, high near the neck. Now from here, my left leg goes back, my chest goes forward, and now my right leg goes back, and my knee comes off the floor. Watch my right knee. And I let the legs gently pass in front of my body. I cover the head with my elbow for a reverse crossface. My left arm is here in the pocket of the hip to shut out his left leg from coming in. So my left arm is in the pocket of the left hip here, and that stops his left knee from coming back in. So that was our sprawling method. I'll show that one more time. This is the traditional method, been around for many, many years. It does work well, it's just not my favorite anymore. But I take the grip up, knee over the bicep, control the hips. Now we have the plow. Now from the plow, I come across, grabbing the lapel. My legs start to go back as my chest goes forward. And lastly, my knee comes off the floor. My knee transfers from my weight transfers from my knee to my chest. I'm here, my weight comes off my knee, goes onto my chest. And then I just move my head across the legs and we cover the head. We have a good pin. Now I'm going to show you guys some other methods that I like a little bit better, and they help me control the pocket of the hips a little bit better. What will happen, and let me explain why I like to do these, okay? And can you do this to me? And it's going to force me into the plow position. And I'm going to pummel this arm free so he doesn't get this, okay? I'm going to keep my elbow in. Now from here, as he goes to step, he applies his body weight. I push and frame, and I slip my knee inside. Try to keep my knee here with your, yes. So I push and frame, and watch how I can flare my left knee open and bring my knee inside. So now when Ant applies his body weight and tries to sprawl, he sprawls on top of my leg, and my leg can push him away, and the pass is gone. And that's what I like to do when people try to use the sprawling method on me, is I'll frame and I'll slip my knee back to the inside. The reason I'm able to do that is because they're merely sprawling their body weight on me, and they're not controlling the pocket of the hip. So now we're going to look at some other methods that do control the pocket of the hip and will stop those annoying guard players like me who can always seem to get their knees in, okay? So I point the feet up and away. I decided which method I want to use to get to the plow. Here, I'll go here. Angle. Hand under the hips, we lift. Knee over the bicep. Now, rather than, I want to take those two big toes to the floor, there we go. Rather than sprawling, I'm going to take my right arm, and I'm going to get tight to the pocket of the hip. Will you point your feet to the ceiling and just pick your knees up? I go across the pocket of the hip right here with my arm, okay? Go ahead and put your feet back down. So my right arm goes through, gets tight to the pocket of the hip and controls the far hip. Now from here, my left leg is going to back step. And as my left leg back steps, I'm going to turn my right shoulder down and drive the top of my right shoulder into the pocket of the near hip. My back step, drive the hips down, my right shoulder and arm control the pocket of the hip. So now if Ant tries to bring his knees back inside, they're well shut out. Now there's one last problem that we run into from this past option, what I call a tight waist option, by the way. I call this a tight waist option because we reach across, control the tight waist here. So I use the tight waist method. My head and my hips are on the same side of Ant. With my head and hips on the same side of Ant, I don't really have good control of his body. So I need to pass either my head or my hips to the other side of Ant. So we end up here. I can either take my head across, trying to stay tight to the pocket of the hip, or I can keep my right shoulder in the pocket of the hip, and I can move my hips across. And that too will be a fine method of stabilizing and solidifying the position. But do not sit there with your head and your hips on the same side of the bottom person's body. That's just asking for them to escape, okay? So, we saw the sprawling method. We saw the tight waist method. Let's look at another one. Let's look at the head pummel, method. This is a good one. So, however I get there, maybe I come in for a split squat, I take this leg up, come into the knee, and come around. However we get to it, okay? Now from here, maybe I try to sprawl and I try to push his weight that way, but he uses his right toes on the floor and straightens his leg, and now I can't collapse the hips. He's got a good base, okay? So when I see this kind of thing, I take my head and I pummel my head to the pocket of the hips. I take my head down around the knee. My head goes underneath and inside the knee to the pocket of the hip, and then I drive across to the far hip. And now from here, I control the pocket of the hips. When Ant tries to bring his knees back in, they're well shut out, and I have my head on one side and my hips on the other of them. So that's our head pummel. One more time, stack. I'm here, I'm trying to sprawl, I'm trying to hit my tight waist, and Ant's doing a good job of staying up. I take my head, even try to take this knee tight. I take my head, I'm gonna keep my hand here to keep his hips up. Okay, I don't want the hips to drop, I wanna keep control of the hips. Now, keeping his hips up, my head comes around the corner, underneath the knee, and I bully and drive my head through until I'm here controlling the pockets of the hip. So that's a head pummel. Another option we have is a knee pummel, where I pummel my knee into the pocket of the hip. So, however we get there, maybe I broke open the closed guard, this knee came in front, and I did this guy. For now, I'll stick to this side just because so we're all on the same side here. I'm up, and I got the stack. Now from here, another option I have is to take it with my right knee, jam my right knee into the pocket of the hip. And now my left leg is going to back step, and I end up with my knee in the pocket of the hip. So when Ant tries to bring his legs back in, my leg shuts him out. Now to solidify the position, left arm into the pocket of this hip. Left arm comes in, swims in right here, drives through until my elbow clears the near leg. With my elbow clearing the near leg, now my left knee comes in. I connect knee and elbow together. So now my left knee controls the pocket of Ant's left hip, and my left elbow controls the pocket of his right hip. So when he tries to bring his legs back in, it's not going to happen. So that's the knee pummel. One more time. Let's put your head that way. Take the feet up and away, and slide down. Now my right knee here is going to come up off the floor, and I try to insert it into the pocket of the hip. And now from this position, my left leg is going to back step as I continue to drive my right knee through. Now from here, my left hand comes into the pocket of the hip. My elbow makes room for my left knee. And we have complete control. So we saw the sprawl here. What else did we see? We saw the sprawl. We saw the tight waist. We saw the head pummel and the knee pummel. I'm going to show you guys one more, and then we'll cut it. This is going to be two more. I'll show you two more for the same problem. Same problem. The problem is going to be a self frame. Let me show you what the self